At Blackfoot Communications, our mission is to connect people, businesses, and communities, bringing a world-class fiber network to homes, communities, and businesses of all sizes ensures Montanans have access to fast, reliable, and secure internet and phone services. Are you ready for fiber internet? To find out if fiber is coming to your area, visit goblackfoot.com/readyforfiber. Connect to more with Blackfoot Communications.
How about this? We're taking it back to the very beginning. We're calling this Tuesdays with Tootell. Once upon a time, Ryan Tootell, who's a distinguished guest of ours here at SkylineSportsMT.com. He had a daily radio show that once upon a time was just a weekly radio show. It's called Tuesdays with Tootell. Yeah. And he and I spend at least an hour a week talking on the phone, talking about all the stuff we used to talk about on the live radio. So I just decided, well, why don't we just record this on Zoom and just let people have at it? So here we are. Every Tuesday, rest of the football season, we'll have, 20, 25 minutes of talking around the Big Sky Conference. What's up, Gus? How you doing?
Yeah, good. 20 minutes. Could be 6 hours. I mean, who knows? We'll see how this goes right here. But, I'm feeling great. And midpoint of the season, God, it's just so good, man. October is it's just my favorite month. It just is. Baseball playoffs going on. Hockey started. I know you're not so into it, but Connor Bedard, are you kidding me? Give me all that. NBA turning around.
What about obviously the guys from the Maple Leafs that had 2 hat tricks in the first 2 games? Does that ever happen?
Austin Matthews, man, getting off on the absolute wrong foot here on this thing. But, he was a probably not a Connor Bedard level prospect, but right there, like the absolute top prospect of his draft class, and the guy that the Maple Leafs were sort of pinning their hopes on after having been sort of vanquished to sort of mediocrity or worse for many years. The first game Austin Matthews ever played, half full arena, but parents in the stands and the whole thing, 4 goals, and all of them no empty netters, no this isn't like in a shootout scenario. Rung up 4 times, and mom just crying in the stands, and it's unbelievable. Like that debut and the Steven Strasburg debut. I don't know if you'll remember Stras's first outing with the Nats, and he's just making dudes vanish at the plate, and you go, oh my word. And he came out there and rung up 11 dudes in 5.5 innings or whatever it was, and it was just incredible. Those debuts were something special. Anyway, we digress. Hi, Colter.
Thanks for being here, man.
Yeah.
First of all, I just want to talk about the dynamic of what you just said. I love October as well, because one of my favorite parts about the FCS specifically, and this used to be more true before the rise of North Dakota State, but it's not if you lose, it's when you lose and how you respond to losing. Because everybody was going to lose. And even the great Griz teams of all time, they still lost a game or 2 in the regular season. It's all about how they respond. It's only NDSU that really went through and said, okay, we're not going to lose to anybody ever. And then it was like, okay, well, we might lose to South Dakota State sometime, but we're also not going to lose to anyone else ever. And then, maybe NDSU is a little bit more human now. Out of the top 10 for the first time in 177 weeks this week. That's pretty crazy. What I get at, though, is when you hit that bad spat or when you have that bad game, how you respond to that is so key for an FCS team. And we've seen this. I'll never forget covering, this is in olden times before the rise of NDSU, but I'll never forget covering Montana State, Eastern Washington in 2010. And the Cats beat the absolute pants off of Eastern Washington. They beat them 30-7. Eastern had nothing. Well, then guess what? Eastern won 11 straight games and won the national championship, and that's the last team from the Big Sky to win the title. That used to be the FCS in a nutshell. That's why I love the FCS so much. I still think that can happen, and I think we're actually getting closer to getting back to that point. But we're going to start this with what we saw on Saturday night, because Montana looked like they were dead in the water and just an awful team that had no chance to make a run at anything the first weekend of Big Sky Conference play. Well, now here they are. They got their first pair of ranked road wins in a row since 2000. This is predating Bobby Hauck's first tenure, which is pretty crazy in itself. And you just can't give the Griz coaching staff enough credit for turning the corner. I think they still have some weaknesses. We're going to get into that. But you're coming back from flag and Missoula's on fire. Everybody's like, well, what's going on? Bobby Hauck's in a contract year. Is this the last year of Bobby Hauck? We need to get rid of this guy. We need a clean house. And they didn't let the mania or the frenzy get to him. And instead, they posted a 23-21 win at the number 3 team in the country. Now, we'll get to if Idaho's maybe a little overrated too. But I mean, just the response and how much better the Griz have looked the last 2 weeks is unbelievably impressive to me.
Yeah, I thought, the Idaho State game last week was a little bit of a baby deer finding its feet kind of deal. Like, they coming out of that NAU game, like, you just had to figure out a way to win. You cannot lose, that game in Flagstaff and then lose to the Bengals. And I didn't think it was impressive, but it was a victory nonetheless. This game was completely impressive. I mean, you talk about a coaching, what the coaches did, both in terms of the game plan to some extent, but just to have their guys ready to play. I mean, it looked to me at NAU like the coaching staff lost the team. Yes. I mean, it really did. And we're talking the first game of the conference schedule, and you go, oh my word, what do we have now? What is this season going to look like? And Saturday night, that looked like a team that was absolutely ready to go. It didn't look like a team. It was a team that was 100% ready to go. And what they're playing, it's impossible to know with this staff more than just about any in the country what's actually going on behind closed doors and what guys are responding to or not, or why, or how they're being, approached or coached or what. But they were there in full effect, the entire Griz team. And what we saw Saturday, I think that is the potential of this team. Right. Like, we questioned not just the effort, but even the players. Like, sure, is this a team that's got enough dudes to actually be competitive? Yep. The answer to that question is yes, it is. Yes, it is. Because they've done it. They went on the road and beat the number 3 team in the nation in a rivalry game, period. And that was not a cheapie, by the way. I mean, they went and they took it. I mean, they averaged the Idaho State averaged 1.8 yards rushing per rush Idaho on 32 rushes. It's not like a team went out there and threw the ball 55 times and ran it 7 times and got stuffed. This is a team that absolutely tried to run the football and ran into a brick wall over and over and over again. Now, they were effective through the air in a lot of cases. But
that's what they wanted to do, though. That's what Montana was trying to do. They were trying to eliminate the run game. If Idaho throws for 350, we're fine with it, because it's funny because Idaho's pass game is what gashes everybody, but they actually came in the game averaging more rush yards than pass yards per game because the run sets up the pass. They also have Anthony Woods, the best running backs in the conference, but you could tell Montana was going to say, hey, we're eliminating Anthony Woods and Nick Romano. If you guys want to beat us on the outside, we're going to use our open field tackling, run the ball, and then bend but don't break, and we'll keep you off the scoreboard at the very least.
And the other thing, too, is the Griz got 6 sacks in that game, but they must have had another 10 hurries. I mean, the number of times that Idaho was throwing, either running straight backwards or off the back foot because of the pass rush, even a lot of times which were successful plays in some sense for Idaho, completed passes or whatever. They were under siege in the pass game, that entire game. So again, tip of the cap to the Griz defense all the way around. But I must say, when Montana has lost, and you said, look, everybody loses somewhere along the line. That NAU game was as bad a loss, both in terms of opponent and in terms of just look, as I can remember under Coach Bobby Hauck. I did not expect a bounce back. I didn't. I really didn't. And they bounced back in a big and mighty way, and I'm completely impressed. I mean, I have nothing. You can say nothing, I think, at this moment other than what a great job the coaching staff obviously did, and what a great response by those players to have the pride and not let that thing get away from them, because it looked like it was going to go real sideways real fast for this team.
That's the thing. This is Bobby Hauck. The way he operates it makes it so much about him and his staff first and foremost. and they certainly deserve a ton of credit. They were more flexible, creative, and went outside of what they're used to way more than they have, especially on offense, over the last 3 weeks to turn the corner. They do deserve credit for that because they've been, square peg, round hole on offense for several years. And they finally decided, hey, we got this quarterback. He's limited in certain ways, but he's a senior. He's our best guy. More than anything, though, he engenders the team with confidence. Those guys play for him. Nothing against Sam Vidlak. Sam Vidlak was not ready. He's deer in the headlights. And that affects your team because then
it does.
Guys are like, well, what are we doing out here? This guy can't even get us a first down. We're on the field for 40 minutes. McDowell, he can help the defense. And as we've seen over the years too, crazy defensive guys, they love the tough running quarterback. Even if it's Tim Tebow, because they can get all fired up and play behind that guy. So the coaching staff deserves a ton of credit, but I want to give credit to the players, especially the seniors.
Yes.
Because you could absolutely lose this. And to me, the number one factor of this team was Levi Janicaro, Braxton Hill, Tyler Flink, Alex Gubner, AJ Forbes. These guys are saying, we are not going out like this. This is not it. We are not going to have this season where we just regress and are embarrassed and all this sort of stuff. It ain't happening. And so I don't know. I think I talking to Levi Janicaro, both on Nuanez now last week, and then after the game. First of all, as a Big Sky alum and a guy that knows this kid personally, I gotta say that I'm just proud of him to be able to overcome what he's overcame, like losing his mom. I mean, it's such an unbelievable story, man. And for the kid to be like this underdog walk-on quarterback who had no position, and he's 5'11", and he just becomes this beast mode linebacker. It's a cool story, man. But I just think that those guys, the players, more than the coaches, more than anything, to endure the wrath of what Missoula. I mean, even after they beat Idaho State, people were like, well, this Griz team isn't any good. I mean, the line on the game moved 4 points because Griz fans were betting against Montana against Idaho.
Right.
So, to be able to endure that wrath and all of that and come together. And I'm not saying there's some national championship caliber team yet, but they righted the ship in a big way. And now they have momentum going into their bye week. They got another tune-up to end October. And don't look now, but Montana's going to be an 8-win team by the time the rubber hits the road here in a couple of weeks.
Here's the thing. This win, we talked about this on the radio last week, but in terms of what this does for their season, this is monumental. I mean, this win to me, barring utter catastrophe, which you couldn't really foresee that at this point, this locks the Grizzlies into the postseason. I mean, I think that they're now a one-loss team who's going to be ranked in the top 15, if not, what are they? I mean, did it come out
number 9 as of today.
Number 9. So,
and that's even controversial because some people say they should have just traded spots with Idaho, and I don't know if they should necessarily be number 3.
No, I mean, that's not how it works.
But you could. I mean, you could totally argue that they're a top 6 team right now.
In any case, they're a top 10 team, and they get a week off, so they're not going anywhere next week. They're going to play Northern Colorado. They ain't losing to Northern Colorado, man. Like it just isn't going to happen. Now, granted, you could have told me that against NAU, and I would have agreed with the statement. So you still got to go out there and do it. But at this point, I think that loss all of a sudden is like that loss lingers, man. And you sit there and you go as a football team, no, we don't just get a win because we're wearing Montana Grizzlies on our uniforms. You got to go out there and earn it. But presumably, expectedly, they will do that. And to your point, they're going to be an 8-win football team, 8-1. And granted, this is a backloaded schedule, but it's also a home. I mean, 3 of their last 4 at Washington Grizzlies Stadium. Yep. And so they got 2 elite teams playing them at Washington Grizzlies, obviously in Sacramento State and Montana State. And a road game at Portland State is nothing to snooze on either.
Totally.
But with this win and with the position they're going to be in with 1 loss going into their last 3 weeks, I mean, I just don't see a scenario in which they don't make the postseason. And that is an unbelievable place to be going back 2 weeks in time after a loss at NAU, and you go, this team ain't even a top 25 team in the country right now, and I don't know if they're going to win 4 games in conference.
Join Town Pump's Pump It Up Rewards Plus program and never pay full price for fuel again.
Save 5 cents on every gallon every day at any Town Pump across Montana.
Plus, earn and redeem points on your favorite in-store items to get free stuff with our clubs.
Stop in and pick up a rewards card. Download the Pump It Up Rewards Plus app today.
Or visit townpump.com/rewards to register and start saving.
Right down the road. Pump it up. Oh, yeah.
One thing I wanted to talk to you about, because I find it interesting. I was really thinking about this on the drive back from Moscow. In certain ways, the pandemic and the year off was so detrimental to Montana across the board, sports in Montana. So I think part of that is you have to recruit guys from big cities, and if they don't get to experience how cool Missoula and Bozeman is, then it's just like, well, okay, we just go to school in this tiny town and it's winter for 9 months. This sucks.
Right.
You know, like the basketball guys went through it so much. They come to play in front of 6,000 people, and then you're playing in front of me and Sean Rainey, and that's it. Like, that's not a great experience for you.
Right.
You don't get to go to a party. You don't get to go to the Mo Club. You don't get to go to any of the stuff. And so that held them back. On the flip side, though, having a year and a half straight to train, like Bobby Hauck wants his teams to do, and to just drill and practice, that was so great for Montana, except ironically, I think it altered the scope of how we consume this team. They were so raring to go in the spring of 2021 when they just killed Portland State and Central Washington. They were so raring to go coming into the 2021 and 2022 seasons, but their peak was in August. Their physical peak was in August, both years. And then they got so busted up because they hit so much during practice. They play this physical, crazy style, and the teams never got better. And in fact, you could argue, especially last year, they got worse as the season went along. This team has a chance, if they continue what they've done the last 3 weeks, to get better as the season goes along. So who knows? Like, if you take a step each week and your quarterback takes a step each week, then all of a sudden you might be just a bona fide favorite when Sac State and Montana State come to town.
Here's the thing. First of all, I have no idea what, and I mean this genuinely. This is not, well, it kind of is an indictment to some extent, but like Sam Vidlak, Clifton McDowell, you set them up there, maybe in practice, you run them through different drills, and certain guy, maybe Vidlak's, better accuracy with the football, can throw it in better places, a little more nuanced passer, whatever the deal is. But put him on the football field, and it ain't close. And what took so long to just make a starter is I don't know. I don't understand it. But clearly,
how much of it do you think it is, though, that the teams that Montana's had a hard time getting past ran two quarterback systems? I mean, Sac State took Montana apart two years in a row because of it. Montana State's been doing it to great success. So you have to give Bobby Hauck credit for saying, hey, this is really working. Maybe we should do this. I just think that you can do it if you're Troy Taylor and Brent Vegan. You can't do it if you're Bobby Hauck. If you're Bobby Hauck, you need a dude who's a dog that's going to make your defense play well for him. And it took them a month to figure it out. But I agree with you. It was perplexing why they were doing it when they just should have just gone this way the whole time.
Well, and also, if your other quarterback is Tommy Mellott, roll him out there, but
true.
It's not just a two quarterback system in terms of, hey, this is like going to be a stressor on the defense. They're not going to know. They're going to have to prepare extra looks and different things for what we do. But if one quarterback is just clearly better than the other one, it doesn't matter what style it is. And to your point, it's the perfect style for Montana. But Clifton McDowell goes out there, completes 11 balls for 178 yards or something like that, 16 yards per completion.
Yep.
Doesn't throw it a ton, but is hugely efficient when he does. Obviously, he had the bomb to Junior Bergen. Okay, that's a big chunk play, 76 yards. But he also, though, tremendous runner of the football, got one on the ground with his legs, was the second leading rusher for the Grizzlies in this football game. And to your point, like, he's so poised. I saw him put the ball in some spots on incompletions, which were perfect and tough balls where it's only 10, 12 yards in the air, but he's deliberately throwing it behind guys to get them to sit down, away from hits, away from defenders, putting it in spots. And that's really good quarterbacking. It doesn't always have to be just lasers over the top or dropping it in the bucket 40 yards down the field, man. You protect your receivers. You play with some toughness. He's hard as heck to get on the ground. Only 2 sacks for Idaho in the football game. And you got yourself a football team, man. Like you got to have that guy in this day and age. You got to have a quarterback that you trust, that you rely on, and that the team does as well. And clearly they buy in to him as the signal caller for this football team. And I think that is monumental for this club. Now, one other thing, though, that I do want to touch on, and that's why I think on the field, that's why I think we've seen the improvement we have from the Grizzlies, that conjoined with whatever the fire that was lit that wasn't there earlier in the season is clearly there. You talk about, hey, if you can make incremental progress, if you can get better week to week, like don't look now, but like by week 10, 11 of the season, you could be an unbelievably good football team, and that's true. But we haven't seen incremental progress out of the Grizzlies. We've seen an absolute roller coaster out of this football team. Like we've seen as bad as I've ever seen it.
Sure.
And we've seen top 3 national championship, truly, like in terms of midseason level on Saturday night.
Yep.
So what we have here is we have the widest breadth of options for what's going to show up on a football field on any given Saturday in this football team. So it's not a flat line by any stretch, but it's not either linear progress. Like if you look at the progress from week 6 to week 8 or week 7 right here, it's the steepest incline in the nation by far.
Yes,
and that's a good thing for the Grizzlies, right? But also, you also know, hey, there was a stinker out there. This isn't a team that has just showed up week in and week out. So now is there a question, well, what are you going to get against Northern Colorado in 2 weeks' time with a team that is feeling itself, and rightly so right now?
Yeah, I don't think so. Because I think actually,
I don't think so either.
I think losing the first game of conference play is actually the best thing that ever happened to them.
Well, I don't know if it's the best thing, but I hear you. Yeah.
It's not like you have 2, 3, 4 wins in a row and then you drop one and you have to get back on track. They lost it right out the gates. It's come to Jesus. Let's figure this out. Let's roll. Life is so much about timing, and now the timing is working in their favor. Like I truly think that they're going to come through the bye, roll Northern Colorado at home. Then you got Sac State coming to town. Sac State's going to be probably coming off of a complete dogfight against Montana State. Then they have whatever they play on October 28th. But I mean, I think the Cats going to go down there and beat the shit out of Sacramento State.
Yeah.
Just because of the matchup. I think Sac State's really good. I just think Montana State's just going to steamroll you. If you're a finesse team that wants to play against that team, good luck. And I think that then Sac State's going to have some questions to answer. They'll be already having 2 conference losses after only losing 1 conference game in 3 years.
Right.
So that's part of it too. I don't know. I just think that Bobby Hauck, for all of his strengths and weaknesses, the art of building momentum within a season is what he does so well. And if that momentum gets derailed like it did last year when Idaho came into Washington Griz and beat them, he has a really hard time figuring it out and adjusting. But now they got a chance to just build all this momentum. And then if you're 9-1 going into the Cat game, you're just playing with house money at that point. Then it doesn't matter what happens with your rival. You're going to get a seed, and then you could go get make a run in the national playoffs as well.
I want to come back to that, but I want to ask you a question about Bobby Hauck. I have seen him very, very happy. And I won't say this was the happiest I've ever seen him, but it might be as happy as I've ever seen him. I mean, running off the sidelines, headed for the Little Brown Stein, hand in the air, leading the charge. I mean, almost like embarrassingly, like I hadn't even shaken hands with Coach Eck or anything like that yet, screaming down the field, and to the victor go the spoils. So good for him. But this clearly meant so much to him. And it seems like maybe even more than, and I hate to use the word merely because it is such a huge rivalry, but it seemed like it was more than just the rivalry victory to me, even though maybe it was because it was coming off a home loss last year, which really, really stung. But what did you think about Coach Hauck's reaction to this victory and his ebullience about it?
DUI is a serious charge, and the process can be overwhelming, but it doesn't have to be. I'm attorney Dave Maldonado, and I have the experience and knowledge necessary to effectively represent you and make the situation manageable. Visit BigSkyDefender.com today.
Well, I think it's as simple as this. Bobby Hauck, he always talks about the old Grizzlies. Bobby Hauck is an old Grizzly now. For people of a certain age, the Cats were the secondary rival to Montana because the Montana beat the Cats every year, year in and year out, for a whole generation. Idaho was the team that had Montana under its thumb. The rise of the Grizzlies is because Idaho left the league. I mean, you could argue that there's a bunch of factors, right? Washington Grizzly Stadium, Don Reed, Dave Dickinson, all the different things. But a huge part of why Montana rose in the 90s is because Idaho, Boise State, and Nevada left the Big Sky Conference. Bobby Hauck knows that. When Bobby Hauck first started coaching, guess who was the team to beat in the Big Sky? Idaho. Guess who beat the Griz often? Idaho. Guess who Bobby Hauck had only ever lost to one time in his whole career? Idaho. He had to have this win for his legacy, his resume, the fact that, I mean, make no mistake, the Kibbe Dome is sold out because Idaho's number 3 in the country, but the Kibbe Dome is also sold out because
the Griz are in town. 100%.
I mean, Idaho's going to play the number 2 team in the country in 2 weeks in Moscow. It's not going to be like it was on Saturday night. I bet you it's going to be a good crowd. It's not going to be like it was on Saturday night.
No doubt. I love that perspective and the context of that, and everything you said is true. I also think there was an added, almost borderline element of relief because just as well as anybody else and better, Coach Hauck understands even a close loss, even a quote good loss, what that means for this season and what the position that puts you in for the rest of the year is not where you want to be. I mean, it really, I mean, if this was 23-21 Idaho and you could say, hey man, the Grizzlies played really well at the number 3 team in the country, but just didn't quite get it done. At the end of the day, it's a 2-loss conference the team, and we're only halfway through and we're backloaded in terms of the competition for the Grizzlies and the second half of the season. To get that win was huge on every level, and obviously very personal as well for all the reasons you cited, the history of it, losing last season. And I gotta say, I thought Coach Eck, who has done a masterful job in 2 years, he got out coached, man. Like he just did. The whole the in game and the week leading up to it. Having gotten that win last year, maybe there's just a little bit of presumption about, hey, we're gonna keep the little brown stein. Like that's just what we do. Coach Eck, I think, kind of came in. It felt like a little presumptuous, and not necessarily in a bad way, but we're just going to keep the little brown stein. And Bobby Hauck had very different ideas about that and coached his team that way. I thought the coaching staff also deserves a ton of credit, and obviously, as you said before, the lion's share of the credit goes to the dudes on the field who showed up and got the thing done. And they should be very proud, man. They really should, because it's not easy to turn things around like that and then to do it against a top 5 opponent on the road in a rivalry game. Fantastic stuff. That was an impressive victory. And you don't get rid of the NAU loss. You don't get rid of the Idaho win either. That sticks with you, and that is something to build on that this team desperately needed, I think. So tremendous job all the way around on Saturday. I can't believe it, man. That, like I said, the highs and lows, they're just, the peaks and valleys are as high and low as I can recall them having been, and we're only barely past halfway through.
Well, and now they got to sit in this seat as this team where their followers and their fans are not believing in them. And everybody around the rest of the league is reveling in the fact that they might be falling apart. And it's like a matter of when does the Jenga tower just fall to the ground and it's just in pieces.
Right.
They got to revel in that. They got to be the underdogs for the first time ever in Bobby Hauck's career. Now you got to buy, and they're going to kill Northern Colorado. If you beat Sac State, now you're a top 3 team in the country, and it completely shifts again. How do you handle being the front runner? How does Darth Vader and the Death Star march through the rest of the season? It's going to be so interesting and so fascinating. So the way that it's going to all adjust, I can't wait for it. Ryan Tootell, Tuesdays with Tootell. We'll do this here on YouTube and on SkylineSportsMT.com for the rest of the football season. Ryan will also be on the ground for a couple home games, probably all 3 of the home games here in Missoula as well. And anything left to add before we get you out of here?
Sacramento State. I can't wait. Andy Thompson, leader of the team finally that he's been on for so long, returning to Washington Grizzly. I just think that is going to be an epic game. But I'm ahead of myself by about 3 weeks, I know, but now I'm fired up.
We'll talk some more Big Sky Conference stuff. And also talk some Sac State, Montana State, probably next week as well. Thanks for being here, guys. Appreciate it, man.
Love it.
Do you have a DUI or misdemeanor conviction? If so, don't let your past hold you back. Hi, I'm attorney Dave Maldonado, and you may be eligible to have your record cleared today. Visit BigSkyDefender.com to see how.